Hello and welcome back to the Cricket Draft Show. My name is Dan Jadzevics, joined by our expert and analyst Dan Weston. And today we are going to be joined by Yorkshire's George Hill, the leading point scorer in the 2025 Cricket Draft County Championship game. If you're new here, subscribe, drop us a like on the video, maybe a little comment. Let us know how you're getting on with the Cricket Draft this year. Dan, how are you? And are you excited for the return of the County Championship?
Mate, I'm excited for any cricket. So yeah, very happy for the change in pace. Although I never really kind of understand the logic between having 4-day games in the middle of the blast or just running the blast through. But I guess that's a bit above my pay grade in terms of the tournament scheduling. But yeah, very, very good. Looking forward to this. And I've done a lot of work ahead of Gameweek 9, so we can talk about that a little bit throughout the show, hopefully.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Not just for fans and obviously yourself working in the sport, but for players as well, and particularly batters. And that could be something that we talk about later on in this episode, is going up through the gears has never come across like that big of a challenge for them. But shooting straight back down the gears potentially is something worth thinking about for those Gameweek 9 transfers, substitutions, selections that you might be making for, because it's just a block of 2 games, isn't it? And then we go back to the blast. Yeah. So it's a little bit tricky for players, fans, and cricket draft players. But if you are new here, you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Drop us a like on the video. And drop us a comment as well. Let us know how you're getting on with your cricket draft games this year, whether it's the championship, whether it's the blast. We want to hear from you. We want to hear whether you're having successes, whether you're struggling. What is your game plan? But let's have a little look back, Dan, to start with, on the first half of the season. And I'm going to go through it's the team of the tournament so far, I suppose, is probably the best way to describe it. Game weeks 1 through 8. And I'm curious to know whether any of these players have graced your team, which of them stand out, are there any surprises? But I'll give you the top 5 first as we go through the batters. But we've got we'll go batters. We'll go Marcus Harris, Adam Lyth, Caleb Jewell. Marcus Harris, 1,147 points at 28.3% owned. Adam Lyth, 1,095 at just 15%. And Caleb Jewell, 4.5% owned in the game. 1,142 points for the Australian.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've had Harris and Jewell in my team over the season so far. Harris has been a mainstay in my team and obviously a very, very prolific point scorer. I don't have Jewell at the moment, and maybe I should with that differential percentage for sure. It's just a shame. Obviously, Harris is going to be leaving my team ahead of Gameweek 9. We've got a few weeks back in Australia, I believe. So that's going to be the one change I will make ahead of Gameweek 9.
Yeah, going into the all-rounders might not be too big of a surprise here, and I think you and I we've dabbled in these over the last couple of weeks. But Ian Holland, obviously friend of the show, he was on a couple of weeks ago. 1,456 points, owned by 21.9%. I'm quite amazed actually that Ian Holland and George Hill are quite so low ownership. George Hill, 1,469 points, only owned by 18.4% of players. What are the other 80% of players doing, not picking these guys? Ed Barnard, 1,393 points, 26.3. And the final all-rounder, Matt Waite, who was actually tipped, wasn't he, by the Gloucestershire lads earlier on the season for having a good season. 1,298 points, just owned by 3.8% of players. So Caleb Jewell, Matt Waite, 2 low ownership differentials. Tempted by Matt Waite?
Well, it's been an interesting season for him in terms of, I think he's probably got his points in clumps, if that makes sense. So like he's had like a couple of outstanding weeks and then maybe not such a consistent contributor. But it's certainly an interesting differential. And obviously, as you said earlier, we've been buyers of stocks in Ian Holland and Ed Barnard and George Hill for a while. I mean, I was an early adopter into George Hill and very, very pleased with his contributions to my team so far. The all-rounder spots, though, there's so many good all-rounders. And I feel like, there's probably 10 guys that you would want to consider who could do a good job in that role. So, plenty of choice and plenty of excellent options.
The wicketkeeper, Is this a surprise? John Simpson stepping up from Division 2 to Division 1 this year with Sussex. 1,442 points, owned by 32.4% of players. Are you surprised that John Simpson's top of the wicket-keeping tree? Not to say that he hasn't got the ability to get those points, but there was a lot of other people in contention for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and some really high-class international options. England are well stocked for red ball keeper batters at the moment, and yeah, I've been happy with James Rew in my team, but I was very surprised with Simpson adapting so well to Division 1 coming up from Division 2, because there is a difference. I'm not shy to say that. I've done a lot of analytics about that, measuring that difference, and fair play to John Simpson, who's really obviously adapted to Division 1 superbly.
Then the bowlers. Now, these may not be as much of a surprise for you. I'm not sure. We'll let you know. Well, you can let us know. Dan, you let us know your thoughts as well. We got the Essex spin bowling legend, Simon Harmer, 1,155 points, 26% owned. South African seamer Kyle Abbott at Hampshire, 1,426 points, owned by 33.3% of players. And Calvin Harrison, the Nottinghamshire leg spinner that spent pretty much, the entire season on loan at Northamptonshire, has got 1,200 points, owned by 14.6% of players. Anybody or anything stand out from those three? For me, Kyle Abbott, this sounds quite disrespectful, but I haven't noticed him picking up hundreds of wickets, if that makes sense, this year. He's obviously done quite well.
Yeah, so I guess it's just consistent, strong performances from him, without necessarily, making all the headlines. So he's just consistently doing what he does well, which I think is a really valuable commodity actually in the cricket draft in terms of having that sort of security and lack of volatility in your weekly point scoring. I looked at getting Kyle Abbott into my team, but I just couldn't get it to work a couple of weeks ago. But I probably will have scope to move him in this week, and I think he might be one of my choices. The other interesting thing is, we talked about the kind of, you don't notice Kyle Abbott. I haven't noticed Simon Harmer, but he's still there. I mean, it shows how good he is as well. So, third highest bowler in terms of the point scoring is a real attribute for him, given the fact that I haven't really noticed him taking a ton of wickets. So yeah, fair play.
Yeah, well, good for all of you that have invested in any of those players over the course of the year. And there is actually a high likelihood, not that anybody has, but you could have had all of these players, Dan, all the way through the season. It would have been entirely feasible, entirely affordable. The total of those 11 players that we've just gone through and discussed, 73.2 million, an average of 6.65 million per player, which is bang on the amount that you would need to build that 15-player squad with that £100 million budget. So maybe, Dan, maybe it isn't right to be carried away by the £9 million Liam Dawson and so on and so forth.
Well, I think we're going to be talking about Liam Dawson a little bit later on in this show. So, the viability of him in your team at the moment, and it does show you that in this county championship, when you've got 18 teams and maybe sort of 15-ish players rotated in and out of teams, that you've got so many options for good players, and doesn't necessarily have to be players who break the bank either. It can be some pretty affordable options.
Definitely right. Just a quick one before we carry on, Dan, and for those that are listening, if you're enjoying this series and if you're enjoying playing the Cricket Draft game, consider buying the Cricket Draft team a coffee. There's a link in the description of the video. Will go a long way to help support this content, the game generally, and extra pieces as well. And if you do decide to buy a coffee for the Cricket Draft team, Dan, you might be better qualified to actually talk about this, but we'll send you an in-depth data analysis created by yourself to keep you ahead of the competition for Gameweeks 9 and Gameweeks 10. Is what's gone into that document, without giving it all away, but what's gone into that document?
A lot of thought and a lot of analysis. So anyone who's cricket draft badger might be really keen to get their hands on this. I've done some opponent analysis for the next couple of weeks. I've done a lot of analysis on match involvement for players, which is something that we've talked about as a consistent theme on this show over the season so far in multiple formats. And then which players are good differentials in terms of their contributions and value for money as well, where the hidden value might be, and then kind of throwing that all into a conclusion about finding some players ahead of these next 2 game weeks who might have some decent-ish opposition to face in terms of lower expectations, and who tick boxes in terms of miscategorizations of skill sets or match involvement or anything like that. So if you're a cricket draft badger, highly recommended.
Well, there you go. If you want to get hold of that and you want to buy the team a coffee, there is a link in the description of the video where you can get yourself that document. And hey, that sounds like that's going to be something that's going to separate you out from the opposition, Dan, doesn't it? We'll go player by player here, or not player by player, but player by position for those that have made over 1,000 points so far during this season. We've got 4 batters, 16 all-rounders, 3 wicket keepers, and 6 bowlers. So it really does make it stick your budget in your all-rounders. Find those key players. You don't really need to worry too much about the batters because it's clearly not a batter's game, Dan, is it? No one's ever said it's been a batter's game. Why would anybody suggest that?
I think it's probably because it's so hard to contribute points just solely as a batter if you don't have the additional skill set. We've seen all-rounders, 16 all-rounders, 3 wicket keepers, with making a really high percentage combined out of those players by positions. And batters, unless they bowl, like say a Dan Lawrence or a Rob Yates or a Jack Leaning or someone like that, it's really hard to score higher value points as unless you're churning out like Marcus Harris level of runs, basically.
Yeah, and just one other interesting thing as well. We've obviously got a few more kind of stats and figures to go through for the start of this year, but if you are looking for a high-impact player for the next couple of game weeks to come in, is there any particular reason, Dan, why bowlers have been so dominant at the start of this year? 7 of the top 10 points per game high scorers, so 200 points plus per game, have been bowlers. Is there any reason or any rhyme to that from your experience?
I don't really understand it, to be honest with you, because I would have thought that it would have been dominated by all-rounders in terms of that double scope, if you like, to pick points up. And it's weird because I haven't really noticed it being a season where bowlers have particularly dominated compared to other years. Certainly, we're not seeing teams get run through on a regular basis. Bowlers getting 6 for 20s and stuff like that. It hasn't really happened so much. So, yeah, I'm pretty surprised at that, but. I guess that's some statistical anomalies that we would expect every so often.
Yeah, just to keep the analysts on their toes. Hey, Dan.
Absolutely.
How about some of the top players throughout the course of this season? We've spoken about points, but actually, let's talk about cricketing statistics, shall we, rather than cricket draft statistics. But Marcus Harris, the leading run scorer in the country with 825 runs. Johnny Bairstow, Grant Stewart have both hit 9 sixes. And Emilio Gay, who travelled from Northants up to Durham over the winter, has recorded 5 ducks so far this year. But actually, he hasn't had a bad start to the year, Emilio Gay, has he?
No. I guess that's that feast or famine approach that we've spoken about with a few players. And another player that's a bit like that I'm considering adding to my team, which we'll talk about later on in the show.
Kyle Abbott, we've mentioned Kyle Abbott. I think this is where Kyle Abbott has got these points from. He's got 150 or more runs so far with a strike rate of 112. He's also the joint leading wicket taker in the county championship with George Hill with 32. Plus has bowled the joint number of maidens with Simon Harmer with 72. So I think I figured out why Kyle Abbott has picked up as many points as what he has.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you're leading 3 categories and 2 very bowler-specific categories that earn you points, yeah, absolutely, and that's why I'm considering getting him in ahead of Gameweek 9.
4 wicket hauls in the innings. George Hill, Ethan Bamber, and Calvin Harrison all on 4. Calvin Harrison's going to be a really interesting one to see what happens with his involvement over the remainder of the season. Something that I'm sure we'll talk about because he's in my team, so we're going to have to make a decision there with Game Week 9 on the horizon. Ian Holland, the economical Ian Holland, going at just 2.1 runs per over, having bowled 50 or more. Ben Slater has 6 50s, and there are 5 batters, in fact, that have scored 3 first-class hundreds in 2025. Cam Green, Safe Say, Ben Compton, Marcus Harris, and John Simpson. Who anything stand out for you there? Obviously, Cam Green is now finished. He won't be returning for Gloucestershire. You've mentioned Marcus Harris will be taking a little bit of a hiatus from the Championship. Ben Slater, could he be a good option there if he hasn't actually converted one of these or many of these 650s? He's due.
Yeah, well, he's a good option in the team that's top of the league. So that's definitely something worth considering for TCD players. I'm actually probably going to look at the other Ben Compton, who's churning them out for Kent. A bit feast or famine, as I mentioned. I kind of said earlier, I was looking at a batter who has that skill set. And has had a well rested time over the last month, not playing T20, and I think that with the Kookaburra ball coming in as well, I think that he should be well set for some high volume of runs over the next few weeks, and Kent's fixtures look relatively kind as well, so he's an option for me.
Yeah, we could be in for some long games now that the Kookaburra is returning to the Championship. Gareth Roderick has the most dismissals as a wicketkeeper with 34. And Cameron Bancroft, 17 dismissals, mostly in the slip cordon for Gloucestershire. But if you're looking again for a batter that's going to provide you with a little bit extra, maybe Cam Bancroft is one of those players that provide you with a few extra points. It's always helpful, isn't it? Everybody likes a little bonus, Dan, don't they?
Of course. Why would you turn it down?
So as we promised at the start of the episode, we are joined by Yorkshire's George Hill. George, firstly, how are you? And secondly, as a follow-up, how does it feel being the #1 point scorer in the 2025 Cricket Draft County Championship game?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, pretty cool to be fair. I think bowling's gone pretty well this year so far, and it'd be nice if I can score some runs at the back end of the year.
So those that have invested in you so far in the game, it's stick around, keep George in the team because wickets are coming and runs will come too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping runs come around quick, so it's probably the rest of the people who pick me up as well.
Fingers crossed. You mentioned the wicket takers. You currently sit top of the charts across both divisions, 32 wickets at 14.65. Is that anything that you'd worked across specifically in the winter to make those kind of numbers possible? Was it, or are these kind of beyond your wildest expectations for the start of the year?
Definitely beyond anything I thought I'd get. I think I've ever got the most wickets in a year, I think, is 27. So, yeah, definitely exceeded my expectations. Nothing particular really, no. I've been asked that a few times. I think it's more so like a mindset thing in terms of actually believing I'm a bowler now rather than being a batter that bowls a couple of overs when the big quicks are tired or there's like 5 overs towards a new ball. But it's been really good fun. Obviously, Johnny's captain this year, so him putting a huge amount of trust in me, give me a lot of confidence with the ball. But yeah, it's been good fun to start with.
That's a question we're going to follow up on, so don't give too much away on Johnny Bairstow's captaincy just yet. But how has it been bowling seam at the start of the year? We saw a lot of spinners take a lot of wickets early doors. It's been really dry, unusual conditions. I suppose you have had the Dukes in hand at the start of the year and not the Kookaburra like there was at the start of last year. Has it been as challenging as what it has looked from the outside to take those wickets?
Yeah, definitely. I think we've sort of played in a whole plethora of wickets. I think we look back to the Essex game where they raked the ends a bit to hopefully get Simon Harmer in the game a little bit. Didn't spin as much as we thought it might do. It was actually a fairly flat wicket in the end. And then the wickets reproduced at Headingley. I think over the last few years, it's been a really, really flat wicket. It's been not particularly entertaining cricket at times. So we've definitely gambled on creating greener wickets with a bit more pace and carry, which suits the bowling side of my game, but not so much the batting. But yeah, it's certainly been a challenge, but it's been good fun, having to not just rely on lateral movements, being sort of having to run in hard all day. Div 1 batters obviously exceptionally good, so it's been tough getting a lot of those guys out. But no, yeah, definitely pleased with the way I've adapted to different wickets.
Benefits of being an all-rounder, hey, having kind of feet in both camps and being able to
exactly.
influence a game with bat and ball. A question I love asking anybody really interested in cricket, but professional crickets particularly. Who inspired you when you were younger? Who were the players you looked up to? Was it a family member that kind of got you into the game? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think definitely more so family. I think I was lucky in terms of having a younger brother, so that was a lot of backyard cricket growing up and a lot of squabbles and a few tears along the way. And then having like been into a sporty family, like granddad hugely loved this sport. He used to sit in his armchair and just throw balls at me on hours on end. Dad as well used to throw balls at me hours on end. I think that's my main sort of inspiration was those just the fact that they were so patient with me, threw so many balls at me. A lot of the time, probably dad come home from work and can't really be bothered to have an annoying child run around the garden on the driveway chucking balls for, but he did, and I'm extremely grateful that he's done that for me.
And if I had to press you for a cricketer that I don't know whether you did, but say there was a poster on your wall, being an all rounder yourself,
Yeah.
would it have been an all rounder, or would it have been two cricketers from the two separate disciplines?
I think it was an all rounder. I think you just look at Jack Callis. I mean, I feel like he's so in a weird way underrated. People don't really speak about him that much in terms of the greats, but if you look at his batting stats, they're an absolute disgrace. His bowling catch and the absolute caught absolute pigeons at second slip. So for me, he was like the ultimate cricketer, in my opinion.
I completely agree with you. I don't think Jack Callis gets the flowers that he deserves for
Yeah,
the test record that he put together throughout all those years for South Africa. You mentioned playing under Johnny Bairstow this year. He's taken the captaincy up at Yorkshire.
yeah.
What kind of captain has he been like to play for?
He very much leads from the front. I'd say with Johnny. You know, he's got his heart on his sleeve. Doesn't particularly hide his emotions, which I think is a really good thing. He's so passionate about Yorkshire cricket. Obviously, his dad captained many years ago, so that's a really lovely thing for the Bairstow family to be able to have two generations of Bairstow Yorkshire captains. But yeah, I mean, in the change room, he's a very motivational guy. Speaks really well, and I think he's been really good because sometimes you can sometimes think someone like him who's achieved so much in his international career would potentially come back and kind of sack it off to half-heartedly, sorry. But he's not at all. He's full on. If he's investing, he's investing, and he's been awesome. I can't speak highly enough how good he's been around helping younger lads and just leading us.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we do book plugs on the show or not, but I've just got to the end of his book, and it is
Yeah,
really, really interesting, and just highlights that point about the family link to Yorkshire and the fact that
yeah,
kind of father and son have both captained the side now, which is
yeah,
brilliant. You yourself, you've just come back from representing the Lions. There's a bit of a
yeah.
gap in the white ball cricket to fit in those two unofficial tests.
Mhm.
How was that experience for you?
That was a really cool experience. Again, at the start of the year, if I'd have been told I'd been picked for my bowling for the Lions, I'd have probably laughed at you. But it was really cool meeting the guys down there. Obviously, quite a young squad, and then mix it in with Wokes and Tung, who obviously played Test cricket. I mean, watching Chris Wokes bowl was an absolute joy. I mean, to be fair, my first touch of the ball for the Lions was at second slip and just clanged one off him, hit me straight on the finger, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, mate." And he didn't have a go. He was like, "Oh, how's your finger?" And I was like, "No, have a go, mate. I've just dropped a catch off you." But he's too nice to do that. We're just learning little things off that, and just obviously playing against the Indians. They're unbelievably good. Like it just makes you realise how small your margins are bowling at the highest level. And I'm not the quickest guy in the world, but KL Rahul made me feel so slow when I was bowling him. I felt like I was missed by generally a couple of inches. It was dispatched the boundary, but it was really cool week.
Yeah, that first innings 100 by KR Rahul was something quite special, wasn't it? If
Yeah, it
people
was.
haven't watched it, I'd recommend going to see those highlights.
Mm.
Um, you've obviously got a few first class games behind you now. It's a lot more than what people I think would expect.
Yeah.
Do you focus on red ball cricket, or do you try and split your kind of workload and focus between the two colour cricket balls that we play with in the UK?
Yeah, definitely split it. I think the way it turns obviously played a lot more red ball cricket and it probably will done a lot better in the red ball side of things. But no, definitely give both formats equal attention. But I think it's in terms of opportunity. When I first started playing first in cricket, we had two injuries, two openers, and I was an opening batter, but a sort of young lad, go sort of lamb to slaughter. I kind of joke about it now. But thankfully did quite well and managed to play for quite a few red ball games. But with the white ball side, I always struggle to get into that. But that's something I'm definitely working on. Hopefully, going forward, sort of cement myself in that side as well.
Um, you mentioned about the step up to Division One, and you mentioned about the quality of the batters that are operating in the first division of the county championship.
Mm.
Is that the main difference that you've noticed between the two following that promotion in 2024?
I'd say also in terms of it's like a team mentality thing in terms of in Division 1, when teams have got you on the rope, they very rarely let you off. Like, it's that ruthless streak of it we spoke about at the Oval after we lost to Surrey, about how ruthless they were and sort of stuff we can learn from how they operate. I mean, and then flipping it around, is like when we're on top of sides, they don't just roll over. They'll fight to the very end, like the Essex did. I mean, fair play to them. They were 4 down overnight. Pepper and Critchley batted unbelievably well for a fair few hours. But yeah, none of them rolled over. They all showed a huge amount of heart, and that's probably, along with obviously potentially a better standard of players, just the mentality of sides, just not giving in at all.
Well, no, thank you. That's really interesting. Final question for you. This is Cricket Draft loaded. So I don't know how much fantasy sports you play, but this is a question to you to say, if you could pick one player playing county cricket, there could be one sat on this phone call, and I can tell you it's definitely not me, George, but who would be your Cricket Draft captain? Basically, you get double points from that player, and who across the 2 divisions of the Championship would you be throwing that armband to for your team?
Good question. There's a couple that sprung to mind straight away.
Probably should have preloaded you with this as well.
No.
And just kind of dumped you on the spot.
No, it's all right. I think Liam Dawson, bats bowl. I reckon that's quite a popular choice, but bats bowls fields. The numbers past couple of years are ridiculous, so I'd probably have to go for him. Probably a very boring, generic answer, but that's what I'm going with.
It's not. It's a good answer. There's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing boring. There's nothing generic about it. It's a good one. George, thank you so much for joining us this week. Really appreciate your time. Been a big fan of what you've put together across the course of the start of this season. And everybody at the Cricket Draft, all the people watching, playing the game with George Hill and the team, I'm sure will wish you all the very best for the remainder of the season.
Thank you very much.
Make sure you are following the Cricket Draft across the social pages. So there will be new signing news, there'll be team availability, predicted 11s, injuries, everything that you might need to be able to build your fantasy team ahead of Game Week 9. And Dan, we get to start to talk about Game Week 9 and who we're going to be changing, who's bringing into the team, who's going out of the team, who people should be looking for. But the question I want to ask you first is, how are you actually doing? Not yourself as an individual, because I do care about that, Dan. I really do. But as a team, how are you actually doing in the game?
Well, I've been quietly happy with my performance over the season so far. It's been okay. Currently looking at just inside the top 500 of players in the game. Dropped a little bit in terms of the game week 8, where I was just outside the top 1,000. But yeah, no, I've done okay. Not as well as you though, which is worth mentioning, because you are just over 200 points ahead of me at the moment.
Well, that wasn't why I asked. I was asking for general sincerity. But yes, I've had a good start to the year. I'm currently sat 350th in the game, which I'm happy with. That's an improvement so far from last year, where I finished 520th. So I'm hopeful that I can gain a few more points there. But it's tough at the top, isn't it? It's tough to kind of find those consistent weeks and those consistent point scorers to really kind of go up through the leagues. But there is a chance. There is a chance, and we'll talk about some of the players that are coming in and going out and options that you may or may not have. But we'll start with the most signed players, Dan. And there's obviously the 5 here for the Cricket Draft players, the people that have been involved in this. Now, to be fair, a lot of people might have been building their T20 sides rather than the Championship sides at the moment. There's still another couple of rounds, isn't there, of Blast Cricket before we get to Sunday morning when the Championship returns. But Calvin Harrison, Kyle Abbott, Simon Harmer, Ben Foakes and George Hill are, as it stands, the most signed 5 players in the draft. Is there anything there that's a surprise? I really like the pick of Simon Harmer. I realise he's obviously one of the highest point scorers, but you're going into the summer, you're going into the Kookaburra rounds. There's going to be a lot of spin being bowled. I would imagine it feels like a great pick. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that he's definitely one that's going to be on a lot of players' radars, bowl a lot of overs, and we've spoken about his maiden pickup ability as well, and I think that there's no reason why he would not be a good pick coming into these Kookaburra rounds. Obviously, we've spoken about Kyle Abbott, we've spoken about
about George Hill and the value for money that he represents, and maybe he might rocket up the most signed a little bit more after this show. So yeah, that'll be interesting to monitor. And I mean, Calvin Harrison is a further interesting one in terms of, like, I don't know how much you can give away with your Northants connections, but you know what whether his status is going to be back at Norths or staying at Northants for the championship, I don't know.
Well, I mean, all I can say is what I know, and as I understand it, Yuzvendra Chahal would be available for Northamptonshire for the remainder of the season. So the likelihood of bringing in another leg spinner to play Championship cricket seems unlikely. I know Calvin Harrison will be slightly different, we'll bat further up the order, but seems unlikely to me. But you never say never, and I guess the question then becomes as to what his involvement would be at Nottinghamshire with the likes of Liam Patterson-White and Farhan Ahmed and Calvin Harrison himself.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's my kind of concern in terms of that certainty around that Calvin Harrison pick for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and it's something that I've got to figure out. So, hey, I enjoyed it whilst it lasted. Marcus Harris, Johnny Bairstow, Bo Webster, Fergus O'Neill, remarkably, and Marnus Labuschagne are the 5 players leaving teams in the county championship. So I think we spoke about Fergus O'Neill, didn't we? That might be a bit of an anomaly in the sense that actually he was quite cheap and therefore you could potentially keep him on the bench and not have too big of an impact for you. But obviously the World Test Championship final has now been concluded. South Africa have won that. So the Australians are departing the UK shores in droves, aren't they, following the humbling defeat at Lord's. Not really much to report on there, is there? I don't think. Is Johnny Bairstow, did he pick up an injury as well?
Well, he has been injured and missed the start of the Blast, but he has played again recently. So I don't know about his status as county championship, his fitness status for that, but yeah, that might be a reaction to that injury. Obviously, Harris, we know, is going to be out for a few weeks. Fergus O'Neill's been out for a while already because he was only allowed to sign for a month. Yeah, at the start of the season, and so yeah, not a surprise really that those guys are being jettisoned by TCD owners.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how about some things you might have missed with the cricket draft? You've got Leicester and Nottinghamshire sat at the top of the table for Division 1 and Division 2, respectively. Yorkshire and Worcestershire, they're both struggling in Division 1, which isn't necessarily a negative for cricket draft players, Dan, is it? There could just be a case of more match involvement for some of their key players.
Yeah, so they're going to have long days in the field, and even their tail enders will probably have more chance to bat. So potentially, if you do look at picking the right option, you could benefit from higher match involvement. Yeah, for sure.
Lancashire and Kent, both relegated from Division 1 last summer and both sat down towards the bottom end of Division 2 this year. High involvement players have been the order of the day, with Ian Holland and George Hill top of the point scoring charts, batting in the top 6 and getting plenty of overs. Big money players are yet to come to the party. Only Simon Harmer is worth 8 million and above in the top 20 players. Do you see any of that changing, Dan?
Yeah, maybe is my answer. Look at that, and that's actually something that we covered a lot in the analytical guide that we've created in terms of highlighting the value of cost of players and the percentage that they've been selected and their points per million and stuff like that. And yeah, I could probably see. Look, Liam Dawson, compared to his price, has really underperformed so far this season. I think that the owners will have had a much higher expectation for him. But that doesn't mean that that's going to continue necessarily. So actually, could he from I mean, he's not done badly compared to the average player, but for his cost, it's not been great. And for me, yeah, I'd still be cautious about writing Liam Dawson off as one of those players who could easily get back into the top 20 point scorers and probably quite higher up than that as well, especially ahead of these Kookaburra rounds as well.
Feels like you drop Liam Dawson at your own peril, don't you? You kind of feel like you drop him, he returns with 10 wickets in the match, having scored twin hundreds against somebody this week, and you think, yeah, it's probably £9 million well spent there, wasn't it? 4 of the top 5. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that's it, exactly that. Yeah, it's something you've definitely got to sort of square off in your head before you do it, for sure.
Definitely. Four of the top five run scorers so far are all openers. Only one spinner is in the top 12 wicket takers. And as we've spoken about, the Kookaburra ball, the dreaded Kookaburra ball, maybe, depending on, I don't know. What's your thoughts about a Kookaburra cricket ball? But it returns for the next 4 game weeks.
Don't ask me about my thoughts on the Kookaburra ball, because there was games last year where paint drying would have been just about as exciting. So yeah, I'm not a massive fan of it, to be honest with you. I understand why it's brought in, although still not a massive buyer of the rationale behind it. But yeah, it doesn't make for exciting cricket. It's going to be probably more batter friendly. We're going to see probably more wickets falling to spin as a proportion of wickets to fall. And I think the sort of the 80-mile-an-hour county stalwarts might struggle a little bit with the ball to be as incisive as they might be with the Dukes. So maybe higher pace, higher spin percentage of bowlers in your team might be a good strategy.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? It throws a spanner in the works. Just 2 free transfers, 3 penalty transfers available for this week, and having almost a change of discipline, really, or it feels like a change of discipline with the same side. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of players watching this that have been planning for these 4 Kookaburra rounds, and they'll be good. They'll be ready to go. There will be a lot, myself included, that will be looking at their team thinking, how on earth do I get the best out of these 2 free transfers to maximise what is going to happen over the next 4 game weeks of county championship cricket? There is a whole host of new overseas players. The visa, the availability issues are challenging for counties at the moment. So what we can start with, Dan, and the good news is for Derbyshire fans, is that Caleb Jewell and Blair Tickner are both available for the entire season, which is fantastic news for Derbyshire supporters. Great bit of business for them. We've spoken about Caleb Jewell already. I think he could be a great shout to have at the top of your cricket draft team.
Yeah, no, Derby going pretty well in red ball cricket as well. There'll be a real boost to have overseas players consistently available. I think it's a huge driver of success for teams, and so yeah, I think Jewell, as we've spoken about earlier, looks a solid option for owners moving forward in the second half of the season.
Yeah, Durham. David Bedingham will be there. He always is, isn't he? And Neil Wagner joins the side. Cody Youssef, Brendan Doggett both leave. Neil Wagner, does he offer that high pace option, or I don't? Not last time I saw Neil Wagner bowl. He didn't, but I don't know how good of a pickup that would be with these Kookaburra balls.
Yeah, I mean he has this kind of tendency to never let his teams down, but I share your reservations for sure. Bedingham, as their other overseas, is been probably a TCD favourite over the years, but has sort of had in and out availability so far this season. So it's not someone I've managed to work into my team. But I do thank Cody Youssef and Brendan Doggett for their hard work for my team over the last few weeks. And Youssef, I'm going to be one of my transfers out this week.
Yeah, Essex, obviously Simon Harmer, Glamorgan, Colin Ingram. Gloucestershire, Cameron Bancroft stays. We've spoken about his slip-catching prowess, but they've also added Todd Murphy. Cam Green finished. They've gone for the bespectacled spinner from Australia, Todd Murphy, with the Kookaburra ball. That could be a great bit of business.
Look, I actually quite rate Todd Murphy, but although if you're looking at gap analysis of the squad, I don't really understand why they've gone for him compared when they've already got Ollie Price and as a decent enough offie, and obviously they've brought in Todd Murphy to replace a batter in Cam Green as well, so it's not like for like in any way, shape, or form. So Gloucester are going to have to restructure a little bit in terms of the balance of their team, But if Todd Murphy hits the ground running, he could be a good option for teams, for sure.
Absolutely. Carl Abbott remains at Hampshire. Hampton, the Kiwi, he has gone back. Wes Agar returns to Kent. Actually, that's not a bad little shout for Kent supporters and for cricket draft players. I don't think. I think it's a good option.
Yeah, well, I know Wes well, and I know what he can do. So, he should be definitely an above average option in Division 2 in particular. My concern is that recently Kent have rotated their overseas quite a lot, so consistent game in game out availability, I don't know, that would be my doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Lancashire, we've spoken about Marcus Harris, Anson Phillip, Ashton Turner and Chris Green. Leicestershire, Sean Masood, Peter Hanscom, Logan Van Beek, they all retain their spots or contracts throughout the entirety of the season. Middlesex, right. What we've got here, Dan, is exactly kind of what we've been talking about. A high-class top-order batter in Kane Williamson and an absolute pace merchant in Josh Little as well for Middlesex. Those two players must be high on your shopping list.
I don't think so.
No,
to be honest with you,
wow.
no. I think that, well, Kane Williamson's going to be popular among other owners probably, and expensive. So as a differential, I'll probably swerve that. He hasn't set the world on fire in the blast so far, though I didn't expect him to. And Josh Little, you might have the tools to do really well, and probably does actually with the Kookaburra. But he doesn't have a lot of red ball experience compared to the other overseas pace bowlers that are featuring for other counties. And obviously Middlesex are in a bit of turmoil at the moment, just parted company with Richard Johnson as head coach. So it's really difficult to have certainty with Middlesex right now, I feel.
Northamptonshire. Yuzvendra Chahal returns after 2024. He won games for Northamptonshire single-handedly last summer. They've also signed Tim Robinson as well, the New Zealand top-order batter, to come into that side and be available for the Blast and the Championship during this period of time. I mean, Yuzvendra Chahal, if you can afford him.
If I can afford him, he would be a serious consideration. It's probably going to be... I'm definitely going to have one of him, Dawson or Harmer in my team at least.
We're taking the pickaxe to it. We're tearing it all apart and we're starting again. Notts have kept hold of Carl Verena and Mohammed Abbas. Somerset, Miguel Pretorius, Matt Henry, and a new signing of, the new availability, I think, of Riley Meredith. So he is one of those pace merchants that could be useful with the Kookaburra. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Matt Henry might not be quite as quick as Riley Meredith, but I still think that he would wreak havoc with any ball, regardless of whether it's Kookaburra or the Dukes. He's an extremely proven quantity in county cricket and also now international cricket as well. And Henry and Meredith as a pace duo for Somerset look like cheat code, basically, I would say. So that could be a real positive for them over the second half of the season. And you mentioned also Notts with Mohammed Abbas. Maybe not quite the impact with the Kookaburra I would expect as with the Dukes. But look, he doesn't miss. He hits good areas consistently. He's still going to be really hard to get away. And I think it was really astute from Notts to bring him back for the second half of the season, obviously, with a title run in mind. So, there's certainly going to be high motivation there at Trent Bridge as well.
Yeah, a few more counties to go through. Sussex have got 2 Australian seamers. Obviously, they're going to be dab hands with handling this Kookaburra cricket ball. Nathan McAndrew returns and Gurinder Sandhu gets his first stint in County Championship cricket. Tom Latham, who's had a good start to his stint over at Warwickshire, he continues, and they add in Hassan Ali. Eventually, I think there was a little bit of confusion as to what his availability was going to be like, but he is in the UK now. And then Worcestershire, not much to report on there. They keep Henry Nichols and Jacob Duffy.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So that's consistency for Worcester. With regards to Warwickshire as well, they brought in Corey, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Rochicoli, as another offie, which, I'm never sold on offies in red ball cricket, well, in any kind of cricket really, unless they have a second skill set. So it'll be interesting to see how he does for Warwickshire, although Warwickshire, I would say, have lacked a specialist spinner this season, so you can understand why they've done it. Would it have a negative impact on Robbie Yates's match involvement would be a question mark for me, in terms of, obviously, he's been their primary off spinner so far this county championship. So while Robbie Yates has had really high match involvement so far, that could potentially change with the inclusion of Corey.
Yeah, Warwickshire just feel like an awkward team for cricket draft players. There's the Kai Smith, Al Davies situation. There's Taz Ali available as a cheap option as a spinner. There's a couple of those cheaper seamers as well that may or may not be around. There was the problem, not the problem as such, but Bo Webster and Ed Barnard kind of taking game time away from one another. They've been a tricky team to actually kind of utilise, I think, for cricket draft players so far this year. Two counties left. Surrey, Nathan Smith stays and Mitch Santner is available. And then Yorkshire have signed the Pakistani top order batter Abdullah Shafiq as well. Either of those two new faces tempt your team?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Santner could be another option in terms of that spinner. I mentioned the choices between the likes of Dawson and Harmer and Chahal. Santner, who should get good match involvement with the bat as well. I would say so that he could be an excellent option. I was looking at Dan Lawrence as an option as well for me with Surrey, and I just again wonder whether the inclusion of Santner might negate Dan Lawrence's match involvement with the balls to some extent, and then maybe have Will Jacks back as well now. So maybe these things are all worth considering for owners ahead of Gameweek 9 moving forward. And Abdullah Shafiq as well. I've been super impressed with him when I've watched him play in Pakistan, and I think that's a really exciting signing actually for Yorkshire.
Yeah, I think it's a great bit of business. Right, there are all your new faces to consider, your overseas players' availability for this game week, the next game week as well. We've considered a lot. We've got changes to make. Who are you prepared to go out and give us the players that are making their way out of your team? Are you going to use penalty transfers this week, Dan?
Well, look, I'm going to make a shout out to the powers that be here at the Cricket Draft and say that I think that two free transfers after a lot of overseas comings and goings and the blast returning to the championship, I think 2 is tight. But I'm in a fortunate position where I don't think that I need to use a penalty transfer at the moment. So at the moment, my perspective is that I'm going to leave out Cody Youssef because obviously he's not available for Durham anymore, and I'm going to do the same with Marcus Harris. With a little bit of money in the bank that I've got, that frees up 15 million. Now, do I go one cheap, one expensive, or do I go 2 mid-range? I don't know. If I had 3 transfers, I would probably throw out Ryan Higgins and bring in like a Dawson type-ish player, or a Santner or something like that. But I don't. So, and I'm reluctant to use the 75 points, given the fact that Higgins is still a good player, and all my all-rounders are really. So yeah, that's a tricky one. But I think Youssef and Harris out, and TBC in, but probably at least one spinner or spin-all-rounder.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm in a similar situation. I don't need to do anything. I have players available, but whether I'd like to do things is an entirely different conversation. I've got Josh Hull, who is available off the bench, and I think if he is picked by Leicestershire, I think he could be a good option as a seam bowler at the top of the order with that Kookaburra. I've got Kashif Ali at Kent. He's obviously gone, so he's on my bench as it stands, so I can get rid of him. I have not issues. All-rounders I'm very happy with. Ed Barnard, Safe Sabe, Ian Holland, Liam Dawson, happy with those. Tom Prest at the top for me as one of the batter, I think could be a player that I try and find an alternative option. Ethan Bamber, I don't know whether his pace and skill set is going to be taking hatfuls of wickets with the Kookaburra ball. And then I've obviously got Calvin Harrison as well, which I just don't know the answer to that. I don't know what is going to happen with Calvin Harrison over the next 24, 48 hours.
No, for sure. And interesting you mentioned about Ethan Bamber as well, Dan, because, that was maybe one of my reservations for Warwickshire ahead of this Kookaburra stint, is that they've got Bamber, Rushworth, Hannon Dalby, those type of bowlers who are all broadly similar in terms of pace and the lengths that they hit. And perhaps not quite as conducive to the Kookaburra ballers as some of the pace bowling groups of other teams. And so, again, it probably makes a little bit of a surprise that they brought in Roger Coley as opposed to a high-pace option, potentially.
Well, there we go. That is a bumper episode for you. We had a great chat with George Hill. We had a great chat with Dan Weston. Don't forget to buy us a coffee link in the description of the video. Like this as well if you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel. Drop us any comments about players that have taken your fancy so far. Any changes that you're making. Are you using penalty transfers? We would love to know. And we'll see you at the end of Game Week 9 when we have a little look ahead to Game Week 10 and see whether any of what we've spoken about, Dan, is actually accurate or true.
I hope it is, that's for sure.
Me too. Otherwise, we could be out of a job.
Yeah, and sliding down the league table as well.
Yeah, exactly.